All right, ladies and gentlemen, we back. We back for another great episode. Educators matter, where learning is the true superpower. So we got a treat today. I got my man, my brother. I'm gonna let him introduce. I'm gonna let him give you the who, the what, and the where.
Yo, thanks for having me, man. This is big. And congrats to you and all the
Sure.
great things you continue to do.
For sure.
I'm Kevin Brown. I'm currently the managing director of culture and climate at a charter in Staten Island called Integration Charter Schools, ICS. I just started here after being with KIT for the past almost 17 years and did everything there from school counselor to dean, assistant principal, grade level chair, principal, and the director of student experience. So, yeah, man, I'm really excited to be here right now.
Indeed. How long you been in education, man?
Oh man, well, been teaching people all my life, but if we want to want to break it down, I've been in actual working in schools for about 17 years, and before that, I was in social services for about 10 years, where I worked in adolescent group homes as well. There's some components of education there too, but if we're talking about just mainstream education, 18 years.
True indeed. So, why is education important to Kevin Brown?
It was the difference. It's the difference for me, right? Like education. I mean, we talk about it in the formal sense in the school setting, but everything that shifted my life personally came from people who had vision and insight and was willing to impart that. So when I look at school, we might have curriculum, but I think the people that are like imparting it on kids the best are those that have vision and insight and are able to like see things past what the current situation is and get people to become ongoing learners. And I was fortunate to be around people, whether that was people in the neighborhoods that I grew up with that was willing to like teach me the difference between what I was seeing and what I should be understanding from what I was seeing. And like I carry that on, and for me, it's important to like pay that back, which is having people understand that current circumstances and situations extend from a number of things, but also the fact that what you're seeing is you need to have an understanding, and you need to be able to plan. So education is more than just books to me. It's about like, yo, are you going to learn about the things ongoing to make things better for you and the people around you? So that's why it continue to be important to me.
Is that what you love about it?
Well, I love the aha moments. You know, I love when anyone go from I don't think this is possible to oh my god I just did that and didn't see it, like because that's what life is full of, is right, like aha moments, like I get it now and now I can do something different. And I think like the level of confidence that come from those aha moments are the things that keep me excited. I also love the fact of, I was in middle school for a number of years. And the one thing about middle schoolers is you meet a different version of that kid every year. And it
Facts.
just brings me back to the fact like, yo, we're in a human business and it's cool to just watch people grow and see different versions of them. Personally with my own kids, I recognize teaching is similar to parenting, where I have adult children, but I'm teaching them how to be adults so it doesn't end, right? So like this concept of lifelong learning, um, it's something that like gets me excited all the time, and those are the things that I love. I love watching people continue to grow, find themselves, and then find wins in life. I'll say this one last thing to like what I really love. I love like why people talk about outcomes. I love the process because we spend more time in process than we do in outcomes, right? When we get to the goal, what we recognize is what did we do that allowed us to get this outcome to be, or what didn't we do to get this, or what did we do that still didn't, right? Like the goal itself, we live in for a short period of time before we go right back into the process.
Yeah.
So I love being in the process to build up to like, how do we get the outcome that we want?
Yeah, we're gonna come back to that. We're gonna circle the block on outcome.
You about to get me start geeking out here, man.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so you are OG. You've been in for a long time. So I know you. I'm sure you have a ton of pain points. What's one of the biggest pain points you have around education?
One of my biggest pain points around education, first is my biggest pain point is the fact that it's sterile. The fact that we don't see people for where they're at right now and make the adjustments. I think like a number of people, and I think this is all ages, right? What had worked before doesn't work now, and I think it takes us too long to make the changes and the shifts to meet people where they're at to actually get them to actually do the level of learning. Like when I think about our current students, for example, I just think about like how much access they have in comparison to access that I had when I was in school. And for me to think that they're going to move at the same pace that I moved at based off what they have available to them is just like not, doesn't make much sense. So one of the pain points is that we continue to do education in this historical way without making shifts, but expect to get outcomes the same way. The things that were needed then and the skills that was needed then is not needed now, and it seems like it's really hard for us to like make those shifts. The other pain point that I have around education is kind of just the term, because like it limits who the actual educator are.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that we think about when we think about education, we think from instructional lens. And I've just seen many counselors, many deans be some of the greatest educators that they were. I've seen many custodial folks be some of the greatest educators that they were. And I think like we put this hold on that term educator as if it's only likened to those in a classroom. I have the tremendous amount of respect for those who teach in a classroom setting, but I think like if we are really in education, then we have to understand like kids are learning all the time, and everyone that's around them is teaching them something. So like I think like to expand that concept is like really important, but it's like one of the main pain points that I have around like education. The limitation based off of the fact that education is supposed to remove all of the limitations, but yet and still we put these limitations based off of certain like titles and things like that.
Want to hear your thoughts on SPED and IEPs. What's your thoughts on IEPs?
Well, first and foremost, I think all schools should operate through a SPED lens, right? When we think about IEPs as individual education plans, we tend to believe that we could just group everybody in and everybody learn the same way. I think one of the things that we see through our learners, our learners with special learners, is the fact that when we're able to target the thing that they actually need, we can get better outcomes. And if we was to think about that thing the same way for our gen ed kids, I think we would get greater outcomes as well, right? But it's this mindset of one size fits all. So I actually think that if we actually approach school in the same way, whether we're talking about a legal or just a mindset that comes with knowing that a student has been identified with a difference in their learning, if we approach that the same way for all our students, I think we would have a different environment in our schools altogether. So I think that should be the litmus test, and I actually think SPED and SPED educators in all realms should be leading the way in a lot of different ways in the way that we approach education.
True indeed. What's your thoughts on retention?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've gone back and forth on my thoughts about retention. At one point, I was solely like, you need to master things before you're able to move forward, because then you're not ready to access things. After that, I've kind of went to like, well, sometimes what changed my mind, I'll give you a story. What changed my mind was we had a kid, and one year we had the score was like a 70 in order to pass. And the kid had a 69 or something like that. Didn't pass, ended up being retained, ended up doing 8th grade twice. Had a 69 in 2 classes. The next year, we changed the grading to a 65 as passing. So 1 year later, he would have been passing.
Right.
Which made me recognize like some of this stuff is on the adults and grades are relative. So what are we actually looking for? How are we really assessing if a kid is actually ready to move on to that next space? Is a 70 actually enough to say that a kid is ready to move on? Is a 65, right? All of this stuff is relative. So as far as retention, it's not so much that I'm all against it. I just think that we need to expand how we really look at a kid through a 360 lens and determine if they're ready to take on um, all of the things from not just content, but from a social emotional level as well,
Yeah.
to move on. I also recognize, just like my background in social work, there are a lot of social things that happen in a household, in a community, that doesn't allow kids to show up. And as I was saying earlier, when you add that with the fact that in schools it's still sterile and an old way of looking at things, right? You really can't assess where a kid is at, and what is actually causing. Like, there are so many ways that kids can show whether they master content, and right now I think we only show one, maybe two ways for kids to be able to do that. So that concept of retention is not, I think, a horrible concept if we can actually look at a kid in multiple facets and say this is why they're not ready, and more importantly, here's what we're going to do to get them ready. I think if you can't do that, then I find it really hard to say that a kid needs to be retained, because most times it's an adult thing and it's not a kid thing.
Yeah. So with that, what's your thoughts on standardized testing?
You kick it to the curb. I there's many articles that show, and I'll just say it from a high school to a college level, right? That high school GPA, how involved the kid was, is more of an indicator of college success than the SAT or the ACT. I think the same could be said around standardized tests as well, right? It doesn't really show an indication of what a person. It actually shows how well prepared that kid was for the exam by adults, more than anything else. So it goes to my earlier thing, which I try to connect the dots all the time, which is that we haven't reimagined education, and we haven't reimagined how we assess our kids to determine if they have the ability to actual take space up in different ways. We also have this one streamline of like how kids, one streamline of defining success. And the truth of the matter is, success come in a lot of different ways, right? Like, I went to a high school where many of my classmates went on varying different paths. I have classmates that are doctors and lawyers, and I have classmates that are in education, that's engineers as well as electricians, and techs at PSENG. The thing that I find is that all of my classmates, no matter what their role or their job is, I went to a high school where the concept of leadership was taught. And in every space they go into, no matter what their salary or what their role is, they're leaders. And they're able to step in with a level of confidence to be able to be the best at whatever the thing that they're doing. And I don't, that concept like doesn't exist. And it's like, I know folks who did well in the standardized tests and folks who have not. I find that, if I'm keeping it real, I find that a lot of places, those quote unquote C students are the ones that lead all of the AB students. And I think there is like mindsets and there are skill sets that go along with all of those. But we devalue certain things. So I think standardized tests is the first step towards devaluing someone's ability and skill set, and then taking away the opportunities to put them on trajectories to be able to have like greater like outcomes and impact society in a different way. So yeah, standardized tests, I can kick those to the curb. I'm not a fan.
True indeed. What do you think the responsibility percentage is for children being taught between parents and teachers?
That's a little bit more nuanced than just like what the percentages are, right? It goes back to the whole like community, because when we talk about parents, I think there are a lot of different people in a kid's life that impacts their learning and their growing. And as far as like parents, I think parents have a big responsibility, but I also know like historically there's things that's happened. Historically, like the traditional family, just like the percentage of kids that are living in traditional, what we know societal wise as traditional families, are not really high. Even the fact, like, if you just look at basic statistics, that over 50 something percent of all marriages end in divorce. And we're not talking about the ones that, so like, just that alone, just even if we had every kid living with mom and dad, we know that there are so many other factors, right? So, I do think there's a role and a responsibility that everyone has. And sometimes some folks are limited as far as like parents. So I think the thing is, how do you continue to build a family structure so that the family can support? And then how do you continue to build the teachers and the supports so that the teachers can then do the thing? It would be great if we can say like, yo, teachers are just responsible for this and parents are responsible for that. But I think like the biggest thing is, how do you create a combination, or having people, I mean, not a combination, but a collaboration between both, where the percentages then fade away and it becomes, you give 100% of what you have. So if I'm a parent and I only have 10% to give, if I'm giving things short of 10%, that's where the problem is. But if we identify I have 10% to give, then I should be giving 100% of that 10%. And if I'm a teacher and I have 85% to give, because this is where I'm at in my trajectory and my teaching and my instruction, and if I'm coming up short and just doing 50% of the work, then you're failing that kid. You should be giving 100% of that 85%. So that's why I said like the percentages is a bit nuanced. It's more about identifying what the person could bring to the table and then bringing 100% of that thing that you could bring to the table.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
No, absolutely. Um, so speaking to the parents and the kids piece, there are some people in education who have children. There's some in education who don't have children, but teach children. Some folks believe that they're experts. I mean, you've worked with a few folks. What's your thoughts on those who are actual parents, if and where there's a disconnect or a gap, and what's the messaging that you would have for someone in education who may not necessarily have children of their own?
Yeah, I used to always say you got to have the right people in the place to do the things, right? I know folks who do not have kids, and some and like show up as their best selves. I know people who do have kids and they struggle with their own kids, and it's like and then they come in and they should on other people's kids. This kid should be doing. I literally was on a call with you the other day. Your kid wasn't doing anything. It's a yo, raising kids in any capacity is a challenge, right? So I think the biggest thing here is whether you, first of all, let's just remove the term expert, right? Because like there are no experts. There are people that's really committed, and there are some people that have like a greater skill set than others. But no one, like, if we had experts, just overall, this thing of urban or rural education will be fixed by now. So
Yeah.
there's no expert. There are people that's really committed and work really hard. But going back to the question around like parents aren't experts, right? Like my kids are adults. They're thriving, and thankfully they're thriving in the world. And I'm still learning how to be a better parent, right? There are teachers that I've seen that we consider master teachers that still have kids that they struggle with and can't get through, and they're figuring that stuff out, right? It's an ongoing journey. So I don't think it's whether you have a kid or you don't have a kid. I think it's how committed are you to your growing and your understanding of what's needed, and seeing everyone for someone different. I had an ongoing joke with my family with my youngest son, which was the greatest challenge. And I love him to death. Hilarious. This kid is brilliant, brilliant. Like I think academically probably the most talented of all my children. My daughter, my second daughter, is the hardest worker that you'll ever see. But I think her younger brother has greater academic abilities than she does, but she works hard, so it looks different at the end. And I had an ongoing joke where, like, I don't take credit for her because I would have to take credit for him. And what I know is I created the same opportunities for all of my children, right? And I created the pathway for all of them. And I had to accept that they always going to choose and become the person that they needed to become. And I think that's the same way I approach like education as well. It's not whether parent or educator. I recognize that each kid is different, and the thing is for me as the adult is to be as consistent as possible and create the same pathways and see them for their individuality, and then meet them for where they're at, and help them and guide them through that course of like where they're at. I don't think being a parent, or not being a parent automatically determines your success in education or your understanding. I think your ability to see each kid and each person, whether they're your own biologically or not, as the individual and the special person they are, and then meet them there and help them guide, right? It's not about you, it's about guiding them, is the key and the difference.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on teaching from your experience, like as a student when you came up, to now? Like, what has changed? What do you think has gotten better, gotten worse?
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up, I probably one of the last people that was raised through education with the mindset of you go out, you get a job that you're at for 25 to 30 years, you collect a pension, you retire, you get your house, you have your wife. Like, this generation doesn't see that, and because of different things financially, like that's not as afforded. But I do think it made it a little bit more simplistic, right? For my generation, and I actually felt like it was like some of the best times because like there was goals, there was like the opportunities, where you was working towards. I felt like sports was way more prevalent. It wasn't oversaturated. I felt like the community was like really clear about you was clear where you stood at in the community, who was who, and that. I think like the lines are so blurred right now that it's more of a challenge for kids.
Right.
The opportunities are blurred right now. I don't think that our schools reflect the things that the society that our kids are going to walk into. So that's different. I was really blessed to be able to go to St. Benedict's private high school. Mom couldn't afford it, a single parent household. Um, got there through some like academic and athletic scholarship type stuff, and it was transformational for me because it was the first place that was different than the code that I knew before I went there was only the street code, and when I got there it was the first time I heard the creed, whatever hurts my brother hurt me, which made me start to see life outside of myself, right? And then was another motto that we had, which was like Benedict's hates a quitter, and it was about it helped me understand like the part that you play in life is to always put forth effort, and then you deal with the outcomes, but you never quit on it. Um, I don't know where that exists at now,
Right.
and this is not a slight on charters, but I felt as when charters came into many of these urban communities, it came in with a focus on content and it's like path to college, but it didn't come in with any like codes or creeds or models or focus, right? Everything was academic, and if we're thinking about the communities that we serve, our communities have a code. And if you don't present them with a competing code that is going to galvanize them, that's just something within our being, and that's to me that's been the biggest difference. And I go back to like I think instruction hasn't changed, the school hasn't changed, but even with that, we've lost what's important to the folks that we actually serve. And I don't when I look at our kids that's graduating from the schools, whether charter or district, I ask like, what are they leaving school with, and what are they walking into the world with, right? What is the level of confidence or understanding or connection outside of I can pass a test, right? Like what is the thing there?
As a black man in education, you know that it's about a 1% of teachers, so a fraction of that at the admin level. Any thoughts on that? You're an anomaly, you're a unicorn, as they say. Does that come to mind as you lead? Like, how does that play a part in what you?
It definitely comes to mind because it's I don't want to sound like woozy me. It's a lot to shoulder, right? Because one, folks are already determining how you're supposed to show up, right? People are dictating to you what your responsibility is, and as a result, they're dictating to you how you're supposed to perceive situations. So, like, you're not really afforded the opportunity to think outside the box, and when you do, you have to be very strategic in how in showing like how you think differently. So, I recognize that that is, that's a responsibility. It's as big as a responsibility as it was knowing that I worked in North, the city that I was born and raised in, and like no, like there was kids that I served that I went to school with their aunts, uncles, mom, dads, right, and it was the same type of thing as an expectation. I welcome the expectation. I welcome the expectation of somebody from the community or communities like the communities that I serve. I welcome it as a black man. I welcome it as someone that has the ability to be able to communicate with other folks and push thinking, create conversation, create collaboration, create connection. I welcome all of those things. I do look and I think about the fact that the thing about leadership is that I'm like really starting to spend more time thinking about is when you ascend to leadership, how do you continue to bring the things that pushed you to ascend to leadership as opposed to getting into leadership and doing the things in a slightly different way
Yeah.
that you disagreed with when you weren't in those spaces of leadership.
Right.
And I think it's so easy to ascend to leadership, and then now you get because what happens is you're sitting at a different table, which means you got different context and different information, and you like, oh, okay, now I understand this, so I can go and do this, and then try and get them to. And it's like, no, there was something that that you saw as you ascended that you need to like bring and create that authentic space, even understanding. How do you get into a space and continue to push for the change in the needs, not for you, but for those people that you actually, and as a black man from a community that is the same or similar to the from the community that I come from, I recognize and I push myself constantly to think about the fact that this ain't about you, and you're here for other people. You're not here for yourself. Other people was here for you, and that's how you got into where you're at. How do you then help other folks get to where they need to be? This is not for you. And it makes me even more thankful for the people that have come before me that created the opportunities for me to have the pathway that I've had. So, yeah.
Um, so if you could, let's just dream for a second. If you could create the ideal school, the ideal setting, what's some of the things? What would that look like?
One, if I could create the ideal setting, I would, it would be twofold. One setting would be every level of school would be a college style space, because like I think room and space to move and maneuver, um, and to like in college what you get to do is you get to pick a major, right, and you get to focus on something that speaks to you. And I think like every kid should have that option, like if I'm dreaming, to like whatever at that time speaks to them. And maybe art speaks to you until you are 11, and then I don't know, athletics speak to you. I don't know what, right? But like you should be able to have something that you are majoring in school while you're still getting these basic core skills that help you grow. That's one of the things. The other thing is I would make it way more community where community have access to the different things that's needed. Currently, like where I'm working at, one of the things that we have is like a food pantry where you literally can like sign up. We have like these grants with different grocery stores and organizations, and we go shop and bring all types of food back until and like families can come and literally shop at the food pantry at the kids' school. We can put together food packages together for kids to take home, right? We're putting together a full laundry service, right? Some of those like baseline things that the many families in the community that we serve need. Um, I would shift school all around where like I said, you will have major things that you focus on, and you also will constantly be in different types of internships where you're doing work aligned with, right? Because we talk about conceptual education. The truth of the matter is, most instructional leaders can't provide the conceptual stuff because they didn't go through the concept themselves.
Yeah.
They only know it from a content base, right? So how do we get kids in places where they can actually conceptually understand some of the things that's happening in the classroom? So I would make it way more, if I had the ability and, dreaming big, like I would make learning way more, I would combine both the instruction and the concepts together. I would create the space of like where success happens. And I think in this country, our colleges and universities, we do see a lot of success, right? We do see a lot of people coming to attend those spaces. There is something to learn from there. How do we replicate or bring some of that energy into our K through 12 system? How do we get kids into those spaces where they can actually see themselves and have experience, right? I think about my own personal kids and the things that they're doing, and when we sit and talk, what I didn't realize, like a lot of their things was they have confidence because spending time with me and the spaces that I had them in, they talk with a lot of different adults. And that being able to have conversations, detailed conversations with adults, build a level of confidence. My kids can go into any room and hold a conversation, right? Like those are skills that we don't like think about or we don't talk about. I also see like their work habits and things like that. They got to be around a lot of different people and understand how they approach work. So it's not just do you have the knowledge to do the job, do you have the actual skill sets and all those other things? And I would want to expose kids more to those things so when it's time for them to work and step into that space, they have been exposed to all of those things over the course of their K through 12 and beyond education.
Yeah, no, that's dope. Will you see yourself in a year, 3 years, 5 years?
Ooh, ooh. Um, Listen, I get up to do. I get up. I'm grateful. As I'm getting older, I'm becoming more and more grateful that I actually get up and do the things that I enjoy doing. And more importantly, like I have agency where I can make decisions for myself, and that's what I want to see for kids. I think in a year, 3 year, 5 years, I see myself doing whatever I feel I'm motivated to do in a year, 3 years, or 5 years. Like I refuse to like tether or lock myself into a space. Another thing that I'm like learning from this generation is that we're ongoing learners. You can shift at any point in time. I love the fact that I'm grateful for the fact that I have the ability to learn. And as a result, if I decide I want to become a finance manager of a Subaru dealership, I know that I can go and learn whatever it's going to take to do that and create a pathway for myself. So I don't know if I think I stopped thinking about like I got to be here or there.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to like have a life where I have like loved ones that really care about me deeply. I got friends, brothers like you that I get to learn from and learn with and kick it with or what have you. I have people that push my thinking, that force me to come outside of my comfort zone. So I think like I in a year I see myself in those same spaces where I'm getting that level of access and I'm thinking through where I actually want to be and what I want to be doing and I'm putting in the work to like get there. So if I remain in the work that I'm doing now, I still want to be putting in the work. I mean it's a Friday at I'm still sitting in my office
Right.
because I'm not because I have to, because I enjoy what I'm doing and I love the ability to prepare and I know the impact of what my preparation would
Yeah.
do for so many people.
Right.
Right. So yeah.
Show tagline right there. Learning is the new superpower. Learning is
Exactly.
the new superpower. I'm gonna get you out here on this question right here. A
Got it.
message for educators. What's a message from Kevin Brown to educate? What do you want to say? What do you think people need to hear, or what would you want to be resounding from you?
Real simple. As an educator, you're in the human business. You're not in the business of content. You're not in the business of consequences and behavior. You're in the human business. And human business means you have to relate to another person. If you want to be, if you want to be, if you care about and you're passionate about this, care about the human being. If you care about the human being, all of those other things that you're doing is only going to enhance the human being. If you approach this work from I'm a master of content, or I am a disciplinarian, or I am a social worker where I teach, so like I am a I care about the human experience, and as a social worker, I provide these type of services to enhance this human experience that I'm having right now. Like engage in a human experience every day, and that's where I think that's where you find success.
True indeed, man. I appreciate you making time for Educators Matter.
Absolutely.
You are a true educator, which means you matter as well. I appreciate the impact
Appreciate
and
that.
influence you've had on me, and I'm sure the words that you've shared with us today will go on ears that need to hear this to be motivated and to continue to doing the good work that folks out here are doing for our kids who need it. So appreciate you, man. Can't wait to get you back on the show.
Appreciate it, man. Continued success. Congratulations for everything that's going to come that hasn't even arrived yet for you.
Percent.